After considering the $6 million, I've decided to divide it between my mom and myself. This decision came shortly after my father's funeral. Ethan, after perusing the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, "Emma, don't be too greedy." Oh, finally I can quit my job, I thought. I have to thank that doting old man. Doting old man? Are you talking about my dad? I inadvertently blurted out, disregarding my confusion. Ethan and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to buy a new car and go shopping. Faced with this unexpected turn of events, I could no longer contain my emotions. I was on the brink of exploding. Burdened with household chores, I asked for money. And to top it off, they insulted my father. I didn't want to live with Ethan and my mother-in-law anymore. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please." I am Emma Carter, a 35-year-old housewife working alongside my husband. My parents were doctors who ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Although my parents were disappointed I didn't become a doctor, they respected my decision. 9 years ago, my mother unexpectedly died in an accident, leaving me and my father devastated. During those difficult times, Ethan, then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Ethan proposed. Ethan was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry. Despite earning significantly more, I believed we could overcome any difficulty and be a happy couple. My father was overjoyed when I told him about our engagement. "I've heard how Ethan supported you, Emma. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said, facing my father. Ethan stood straight and promised, "I will make her happy." Standing next to Ethan, I was enveloped in feelings of happiness. The following week, we went to Ethan's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, with flashy makeup and divorced from Ethan's father, evaluated me rudely. "Marriage, huh? You're Ethan's choice, are you? Isn't she a plain choice for you, and she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" Ethan quickly retorted, "Mom, you know M Pharmaceuticals, right? Emma works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his practice." I expected Ethan to praise my character, but instead he emphasized the financial advantages. Hearing this, his mother's expression changed to one of satisfaction. "Oh, Ethan, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Emma. Thank you." After gaining approval for our marriage from Ethan's mother, Ethan was overjoyed. However, I couldn't shake off a sense of unease. Despite things going smoothly in our decision to get married, when we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, gifted me an apartment in a luxury building in New York City. I told Ethan, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Ethan smiled happily, and thus our married life began. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Ethan, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to throw it away. While I wanted to diligently share household responsibilities, Ethan's careless attitude increased my dissatisfaction. In the first year of marriage, I took on all the household responsibilities, despite some complaints, given that we were still in the honeymoon phase. But with the exhaustion from work and struggling to keep up with chores. In our second year, I reached my limit, deciding it was time for a serious talk with Ethan about sharing household duties. Bravely, I expressed my dissatisfaction, only to be met with Ethan's dismissive response. "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." Ethan hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the only problem. After marrying Ethan, I discovered his mother also had some peculiar ideas. Ethan wasn't very interested in seasonal events, so I decided to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite choosing a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me, sounding displeased. She criticized the scarf, saying it wasn't from a famous brand and was absurd to send such a no-name item. I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen. insisting she wanted items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned, I reported this to Ethan when he returned home, but instead of empathizing, he said, "What? It's just do as she said." Ethan didn't take my side, and from then on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 5th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Ethan, without any complaints, would always smile and give money to his mother, even though I had a job. Ethan's income was limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation led me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Ethan cherished his mother, and she was an important person to me, having supported me during tough times. She's the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer, and treatment was no longer possible. "Hey, did you love and enjoy the story? Take a moment to like and subscribe for more." Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Emma, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I questioned Dad. "Why even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Ethan I would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," was the only thing Ethan said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. I was so preoccupied with my father's care that I had no time to spare for Ethan. If I had time to worry about Ethan, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked me, "Emma, how is your marriage with Ethan going?" Caught off guard, I found myself thinking about Ethan's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, my father seemed to understand and spoke to me. "Emma, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." I couldn't hold back my tears, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly, engulfed in immense sorrow. Amidst my grief over arranging my father's funeral, Ethan showed no interest and didn't assist with any preparations. Despite this, I was too occupied with funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Ethan. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell, even with the indifferent presence of Ethan and his mother. The day after the funeral, a lawyer called me about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting and listened to the explanation. The information was both new and surprising. After deducting taxes, including inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $6 million. He had amassed this fortune not only through his earnings as a doctor, but also from real estate investments. The revelation left me both stunned and grateful, yet trembling at the thought of managing such a significant sum. Upon returning home, I spread out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk. Reading through them, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a short while. When I awoke, I heard cheerful voices coming from afar. "Huh? Ethan and Mother too? When did you arrive?" I asked as Ethan approached me with a beaming smile. "Yes, Emma, well done," he exclaimed. Confused by his sudden excitement, I noticed the documents in his hand, the inheritance papers I had received from the lawyer. "Wait, don't just read those without asking." I was shocked and angry at Ethan for looking through the documents without permission. However, my mother-in-law, seemingly unconcerned, happily chimed in. "Wow, an inheritance of $6 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused, I couldn't understand why my mother-in-law suddenly said that. Then Ethan turned serious and continued. "By the way, about this $6 million, I've decided that it will be split between me and my mom." It was right after my father's funeral. Ethan, having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, said to me, "Emma, don't be too greedy." "Oh, now I can finally quit my job." I have to thank that doting old man. I accidentally said it out loud. Doting old man? Are you talking about my dad? I questioned. Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible, Ethan said, ignoring my confusion over this sudden turn of events. Meanwhile, Ethan and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and going shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding. Burdened with household chores, I asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. Suppressing my anger, I replied with a forced smile. Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law, please. As they seemingly approved of my compliance, my mother-in-law cheerfully said, That's the spirit, Emma. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard. I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. Afterward, Ethan and my mother-in-law began living as if they had lost their minds, spending money lavishly. Ethan quickly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house constantly. They would leave in the morning, returning with luxury brand items they had splurged on. The 3-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected, my mother-in-law remarked. Yes, it was a bit underwhelming for us, the sophisticated ones, Ethan agreed. They had conversations as if they had become wealthy celebrities while dumping all the housework on me as if I were a maid. Ethan seemed to think my father's inheritance would come through immediately. He carelessly withdrew money from our joint account, and my savings of $1,000 dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Ethan just laughed it off. What are you talking about? Isn't $6 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal, he said dismissively. I warned him, I've already stopped it, but Ethan completely ignored me. Then, about a month later, Ethan and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Hawaii. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door, wondering what was happening. Glancing at the intercom monitor, I saw Ethan and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. What do you want? I asked calmly and coldly, masking my anger. What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Ethan yelled, visibly confused. Seeing their confusion, I confidently answered through the intercom. Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open. What? Why? Ethan exclaimed. Let's talk this over calmly at the nearby cafe. Please go ahead, I'll join you shortly, I suggested. After some futile shouting in front of the entrance, Ethan and his mother headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I made my way there. Arriving, I saw Ethan and his mother, who had arrived earlier, waiting in a state of fury. What's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now, Ethan demanded. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly told them, facing Ethan's visible anger. I presented a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? Ethan was shocked. Emma, why has it come to this? His mother was equally bewildered. Quietly, I explained to them about their lavish spending and the disappearance of our savings. Ethan retorted vehemently, What money? Of course it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming. But when he checked the account on his smartphone, his expression changed abruptly. What's this? Why is the money gone? Ethan exclaimed. I revealed that I had moved the $50,000 to my account as part of the property division in the impending divorce. Ethan realized that the inheritance I received during our marriage wouldn't be split between us. Desperate, Ethan pleaded with me not to divorce him, admitting he had no savings or job. But I remained firm. Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. Later, we went through the divorce proceedings without issues. The $50,000 I moved was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to get Ethan and his mother out of my house. Meanwhile, I sold the condo Ethan and I used to share and moved into my father's apartment. With the inheritance, I live comfortably. While Ethan and his mother struggle with debt, I aim to protect my happiness and cherish my life ahead. Grateful to my late father for his support. Did you enjoy the story? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe for more content like this.
All right, everyone's presentations are done,
Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward.
Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak.
There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer.
Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email.
Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly.
The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk.
He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale.
Nick, is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam.
My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father.
Well, you could hardly call it being raised.
After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing.
Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school.
Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out.
I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything.
The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke.
Take care. That was our last conversation.
Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment.
Yet, my father never visited me even once.
I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education.
Listen up.
Our work can change the future of our employees.
Don't drag us down.
On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly.
There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle.
At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state.
But that was long ago.
Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose.
I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry.
I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him.
Someone was watching me with a smirk.
In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go.
You are the latter.
It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened.
Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results.
As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty.
Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey.
I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day.
Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today?
Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today.
I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly.
They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job.
Having joined the company wanting to do customer service.
I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look.
To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally,
Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance.
As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick.
If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America.
Nick began the presentations.
Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them.
The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me.
There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer.
He was likely talking about me.
I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently.
Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right.
After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking.
The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation.
Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life.
I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving.
I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home.
The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk.
In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale.
Nick! What's wrong?
Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick.
And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires.
Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen.
They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday.
Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips.
The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally.
President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles.
Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief.
Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction.
Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?
We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs.
Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan.
If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized.
Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do.
I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you.
Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you.
Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind.
Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening.
After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason.
He was demanding, get his boss here immediately.
It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training.
What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next.
Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation.
If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you.
I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was.
As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor.
I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?
I don't remember that part.
I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers.
Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone.
It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault.
This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf.
He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show.
Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation.
The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared.
Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment?
Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance.
Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too.
It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized.
As for the other requests,
Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load.
I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job.
I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor.
In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office.
I was amazed he still hadn't apologized.
You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company.
I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here.
When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it.
Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted.
Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent.
I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned,
I'm moving to the sales department soon.
If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse.
Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it.
On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer.
It's still working hours.
Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer.
Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived.
I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name.
They look good. What are you talking about?
These are plastic bottles.
I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea.
But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company.
It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email.
I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed.
He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important.
You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter.
Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble.
Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation.
Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment.
Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary.
Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too.
I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.